My dear community, welcome to my channel. My name is Wei-Jen and I help people to attract the lifestyle and the love they desire to have by expanding their awareness, self-love, and energy vibration. Today's topic that I want to talk about is authentic self-love. Now, part of the reason I want to dive into this topic is because I remember my last video, I talked about vulnerability and then the power of vulnerability that it can also increase our authenticity. So today's topic will be a little bit relevant to my last video, if you watch my last video. Also, today's video, I will also add the element that I just experienced last night, how the vulnerability connects to my authenticity, and that lead me to feel more self-love today. You know, that can also attract the lifestyle and the love that I desire to have. So I want to jump into this backstory. For some of you may know that I grew up in functional alcoholic familyhood. My father is a functional alcoholic and also a narcissist. My mother is untreated, severe codependent, and I am very fortunate that I get to learn about my old patterns, that they don't serve me anymore. So I started my personal transformation and a spiritual awakening journey a couple years ago when I had my own humble moment. And because of that, and also because of my codependency disease that I was inherited from my mother, today I feel more grateful and I feel very fortunate that because of my disease, it got to lead me to where I am today and who I am today, to help other people and then also heal myself as well. And so with this background that I just shared with you, that leads me that I want to share with you the next thing, which is I used to have this pattern, and then I still have, sometimes today when I am not aware of that old patterns. It's not something that is very obvious, but it's more of an internal pattern. That internal pattern that I'm referring to is, how I feel at a certain time in a certain space. And, for some of you may interpret it as trigger. And, I would agree with you, in some level, if you look at it, it can be a trigger as well. And so this is what I call old patterns or trigger. It happens sometimes when it was around 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night. I would have this automatic feelings that comes to me where I felt a sense of loneliness and then also fear, and definitely a little bit triggered, here and there. Even there's nothing happen. There's nobody around me. I would have this anxiety and this scarcity, this anxious, feeling and uncertain feeling for sure, and the loneliness and isolation. These feelings that are not very positive come to me, sometimes around between 8 to 10 o'clock at night. And so what I used to do to handle those feelings is either, I took Xanax and then I go to bed very early to skip those, uncomfortable negative feelings that could also overwhelm me, even really nothing happened. Or I would go out and then spending my night with, friends. Or I would watch, Netflix or watch TV shows just to numb myself. Definitely, I would, allowed myself to get involved with alcohol during those hours. So that's how I used to handle it. But since I got on my spiritual awakening journey and I really dive into, my inner self in a deep level, I noticed myself that I have become more aware and become more courageous to really be curious, to observe where those feelings are coming from. And earlier I said that these feelings can sound like trigger for some of you because they're so automatic, they're autopilot. I can understand that because through my observation from a place of curiosity to observe all those feelings in that specific, hours, I now today understand where they come from. And it's actually coming from my inner child who used to be so scared during those hours. And, because my inner child as growing up in an alcoholic familyhood, as a child, I remember I used to be so scared during those hours living with my parents from the age of 6 or 7 to the age of 14 or 15. And the reason is because my parents, they used to fight a lot, and there were a lot of physical abuse and sexual abuse happened in the household during those hours. And the frequency, I can tell you, is probably 3 to 4 times a week. And so they would start to fight either at 8 or 9 p.m. until the next day, 5 or 4 a.m. So during that time, I was always, sleep deprived at elementary school and junior high school. And I particularly felt very isolated and very lonely because even when I was at school, I had that anxiety still with me because I didn't know today when I go home after school, will our house become really messy again? There were bowls or plates or chairs they're throwing around in the household when my parents were fight. And there are even some sexual and very graphic scenes happened quite a lot in the household when I was growing up with my parents. And really in that culture during that time, we weren't really allowed to clean our dirty laundries in the public. So I couldn't really, nor did I have any language to address what's going on or express or describe what was really going on in my household with the school teachers or classmates. So that was just, growing up in that kind of environment, I built this automatic, feelings that, okay, my body now acknowledge it's 9 o'clock, it's 10 o'clock, and I am ready for my parents, whatever the horrible they're going to throw to each other tonight. It's going to be a long war sometimes, and sometimes it's going to be, very quiet, very serene. And then I would take that as a piece of very peaceful ocean before the tsunami is about to arrive. So that's how I would interpret it. So you can see that how insecure and anxious and worried and fearful that I felt, as a kid. And inevitably that I also carry those feelings, those autopilot feelings with me, even after I moved out of my their household. But, still I couldn't figure out, how to handle that. Sometimes the feeling could come all at once at me where I felt so overwhelmed that I'll just put myself into sleep and I will have an early night. But today, I realize that, I'm aware those feelings coming from my childhood wounds and trauma, and with lots of, tools and outside resource to support me, I get to have a courage to rewrite those feelings and to build a healthier future and build a healthier relationship with myself, with my inner child, and then also with the relationship that I had, with those old memories as well. So here is what happened to me last night. It was around 8 or 9 o'clock at night, and I noticed myself that I started to have this, a little bit lonely and then nagging feelings came to me. And I was alone at home. I was very aware that my instinct, my first place that I usually would choose to go is to either watch TV, have a glass of wine, or call friends and then, gossip, or talk about, small talk. But none of that I did that. None. Zero. Instead, I made a conscious decision that I was going to choose to sit with it. Not only sit with it, but also I was going to be gracefully, welcomely to invite that inner child come out and play with me. And so I invited that inner child to come out to do some color and, drawing with me. So my inner child and I last night, we actually had a quite fun night last night. We draw, some pictures, we color some images on my notebook. If you can see, I can show you. So this is I used a couple sharpest, the colors that I had at the moment. And I must, confess that I did have a moment where there's also another part of me where I was telling myself, I didn't have enough colors. I didn't have, colorful. I didn't have many choices of the colors. I only had very limited, choices for the sharp, and, I wasn't satisfied. But then I told myself, you know what? We're gonna use what we have, and then we can still make a fun night. So this is the color that I put it into myself, right? And then I draw like a big heart and then a tree, that's a pink tree. And in the end, I just had tremendous appreciation and gratitude, and then also definitely love and compassion, vulnerability, and authenticity with me, myself, and also with my inner child. That led me to make a list of, I named 3 things that I appreciate about myself, the qualities that I have, whether it's from my body, from my intellect, or from my emotional self. I just needed to name 3 things, and I wrote it down, the quality that I appreciate that I have. Now, after that, I also named other 3 things that I feel grateful for from yesterday, all day. It can be a small thing, it can be very subtle, it can be a big thing. And I must say, during that moment when I was coloring the pictures and the drawing, at first my body didn't feel comfortable, didn't feel, used to it. But then the longer that I sat with my inner child and just, be there for her, sit there with her and listen to her whenever or whatever she has anything that she wants to tell me. It was quite profound, and also it was also quite vulnerable as well, I have to say. It's just that it has a lot of love and compassion. Sorry. And that really aligned with my authenticity, my integrity, and dignity as well. And that also got me to think about what really makes a person to be authentic. You know what I think about authenticity is that authenticity involves embracing my strength, weakness, imperfection, and resilient as well. And that when I have that ability to embrace not only the good qualities, good things about me, but also, the dark side of me, the imperfection, my imperfection of me, that is authenticity. And that also relates to vulnerability. Because when I embrace my imperfection, strength, and weakness, it takes courage to be vulnerable, to either to express how am I feeling with myself and how am I feeling with another person. It also takes courage to express what are my desires and what are my needs and my standard. And that also takes courage to set up the boundary with myself and with another human being. All these things, they takes courage. And that's really a quality that makes a person to be authentic, along with their vulnerability as well. And I just thought that was very profound. I was talking to my inner child that, yeah, I know that we didn't have a good childhood, but you will always stay with me and I will never ever abandon you. And I will always, I will always get you back. I will always be here for you. And now it's never too late that we get to create some fun memories together. We get to color things together. And you know what my inner child responded to me? Is that she said thank you. And she told me that she felt so much loved. And she likes to continue to feel being protective, be loved, and be cared, and be seen and being heard. And I just gave her what she wants. I just gave her what she tells me what she needs. And so all these works that I've been sharing with you, it's all about, our inner work. How do we maintain that part of us that, that there was something that we wanted to get from our parents, but we didn't get it from our parents. There's something that's missing. And so that is real self-love that I'm talking about here. I mean, yeah, true, self-love that also, and the self-care that also sometimes includes, go get a manicure, go get a massage, go get a haircut, treat ourselves something nice, go to, a very fine restaurants or buy us a gift. Those also, are self-love and self-care. But when it comes to self-love, self-care, that internally, these are the really work that I'm talking about here. So couple tips that I want to share with you is that in order to be authentic, loving ourselves, I want to encourage you and invite you to do some exercise like what I just did last night. Maybe it's taking a walk, maybe it's learning how to play piano or music. Maybe it's something that we do some journaling and some inner dialogue with ourselves and really be honest. Be honest with ourselves. You don't have to tell anybody if you don't feel like it, but the real important thing is that be honest with ourselves about what's going on. How am I feeling? What do I need? Okay? And then also really listening and see each department of our inner self. There's an intellect, there is an emotional self, and then there's also a spiritual self and a spiritual guide. Some people, they call it universe or higher power, but I call it a spiritual self. So these are the tips that really can help us to exercise how to be vulnerable and be authentic to ourselves. So when we can do that with ourselves, inevitably and organically, we can also do the same thing with another person. And then that's really how we can connect with another human being. That's also how we can get other people to see who we really are. So that is my share today. I hope you find this video is very insightful and helpful to you. If you really like my content, please subscribe my channel, like the video, or even leave some comments about your thoughts. Or even more, I want to hear how do you practice being vulnerable and being authentic with yourself and with another person as well. That is something that I would love to hear from you. If you want to dive deeper into a personal transformation, also feel free to book a 30-minute discovery call to find out whether or not working with me is a right fit for you. Again, I want to thank you, and thank you so much for spending your time watching my video. And I wish you have a fabulous day. Namaste.